our next speaker. Michelle Richardson is a certified life coach. She received her certification from the Life Coach Institute of Orange County. She is also an NLP practitioner trained under Matthew B. James, PhD, at the Kona University in Hawaii. She has a knack for assisting people in coming up with solutions to life's ups and downs. Professionally, she has given the name the Rapport Coach because her clients consist mostly of people who want to improve their communication skills. Companies she has worked for include Harbor, UCLA Medical Center, the United States Post Office, Pennington and Associates Law Firm in Beverly Hills, and Shields for Families. Currently, she is assistant producer of the Hutchinson Report, a provocative public issues talk radio, streamed via ktym.com and kpfk.org. I am also in partnership with Pedro Diaz of The Times with Michelle and Pedro. What she is most passionate about in her profession is assisting people in improving their emotional intelligence and changing their outlook by changing their perception. What excites her about this is she brings to her coworkers, families, and friends together through working dialogues. Please help me welcome Michelle Richardson.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm glad to be here because I am living my purpose and passion right now, doing what I love, sharing information that I know will be helpful to you. Today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, or EQ. According to Daniel Goldman of Rutgers University, EQ is the sine qua non of leadership. So if you've got EQ skills, then IQ will get you in the door, but EQ will make you soar. So we're going to learn a thing or two about emotional intelligence. There are 5 components of emotional intelligence, and they are knowing oneself, the self, control, motivation, empathy, and 5, social skills. The self. We've often heard that empathy is standing in the footsteps of someone else. The self, or knowing oneself, is to stand in your own shoes and evaluate yourself. To know what your strengths are, your weaknesses, what you're good at, what areas you need improvement, and also allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to share with people what areas you can use improvement, or when you need help, the ability to ask for help. Knowing oneself is to give yourself or have a realistic view of yourself that you can live with and find acceptable. Some time ago, I was at a dinner party at a beautiful home in Orange County. Brand new, a lovely spiral staircase, and a wonderful community with wonderful people. After dinner, we all went out to the backyard to enjoy a bonfire under the stars, and we shared careers, graduate school. We talked about family. I shared my career. I was a certified life coach and a CNA. Someone yelled out to me, "Michelle, you should throw in the bedpan and get a real job." And I was shocked and embarrassed. Throw in the bedpan for a real job? On the way home, I couldn't help but play that back in my head. Why was I doing this job? I was doing that job because I love senior citizens, and senior citizens love me. And if you're a CNA, you're going to work very closely with senior citizens. I have a client, and he's about 90 years old and confined to a wheelchair. And he was the bodyguard to Angela Davis. Yes, the Angela Davis, who was a part of the Black Panther movement. These days, he needs me to change a light bulb. And I'm glad to do it. I'm glad to do it because I am of service to him. And he doesn't have a problem asking me because I let him know that he is a valuable person to society. And I respect him for that. He appreciates me because I allow him to live his life with dignity and respect. I don't tell him what he needs. I ask him what he needs. I don't barge in the front door. I knock on the door and ask him, how can I serve you? Sometimes we sit down and we have breakfast together and we watch TV. And he's happy about that. It's a very vulnerable time in your life when you're aging. And that vulnerability comes not because you want to be vulnerable, but because you have to be vulnerable. Old age makes that happen. So that's why I'm not throwing in the bedpan. And not throwing in the bedpan meant that, or motivated me to get my RCFE certification through the state so that I could have my own in-home care agency called Homewell in Alhambra. So IQ will get your foot in the door, but EQ will make you soar. Being able to empathize with people and motivate them to keep on going by treating them with dignity and respect and letting them know that they're valued, not just yesterday, but now. Control. You could also use the term, we'll just go with control. Self-control. Allowing yourself to get hold or gain control of the negative impulses that drive you to do negative things. Are any of you familiar with Muriel Hemingway?
Yeah. She's going out
Oh
front.
boy, impressive.
No, Bobby Williams, he's a climber suicide.
Well, I'm very impressed with Muriel Hemingway because if you did not know, she is the great-granddaughter of the late Ernest Hemingway. And Ernest Hemingway won the Pulitzer Prize for his work. But there were other things going on in the Hemingway family. Depression, mental illness, and a string of suicides. 8 people in their family committed suicide. So when Muriel's sister committed suicide, Muriel believed that she was handing the torch over to her to do the same thing. Muriel tossed and turned at night, believing that she would wake up crazy and end up killing herself. Then she did this. She made a decision. to take control of those negative impulses that drove her to do negative things like entertain suicide. She looked into research regarding why her sister committed suicide. And the reason for that was because she looked up to her great-grandfather, and that's the way he went out. So that was that Hemingway way. You live your life, you become successful, you make a lot of money, you overindulge, and you commit suicide. But she did not want that for herself. So she made it her business to take control of those negative impulses that drive you to do negative things like drink excessively, eat excessively, negative self-talk. She even wrote a book called Running from Crazy because she wanted no part of that family and the mental illness. And now she lives her life wholly, traveling around the country, talking about health and wellness, mental health and wellness, taking control of negative impulses. When you see it coming, do something about it. You may need to join a group like AA. You may need to join a club where you can voice your opinion. You might need to look into therapeutic help. But there is something that you can do. Motivation. There are two kinds: intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the stuff that we internalize. The wonderful things that make us feel good about ourselves, like volunteering, giving to a worthy cause, working in the garden and giving back to the environment. I love working in the garden. Sometimes I'm so excited to get in the dirt that I jump right out of my car in my business clothes and start digging with my keys. Well, not really. But that's how I feel about gardening. It seems to do something for me that relaxes me, allows me to get centered and engage with the earth. There's also the extrinsic motivations, and those are the material things, the things that we work hard for, like the beautiful home in Orange County, or the beautiful automobile, beautiful clothes. However, you gotta know the boundaries. Extrinsic, intrinsic. You can have both, but you can't go overboard with one because you gotta make a living. So you gotta earn an income, and a salary is important so that you can have those fine things, but you also have to give and give back. You also have to give back. Now we've got empathy. I had a job working with the Easter Seals. Easter Seals is a nonprofit organization that works with adults who have disabilities. I was a job coach specialist. And when I took on the position, I wasn't sure what to expect. But what I learned is that the young people or the young adults who work for Easter Seals, the clients of Easter Seals are people who have disabilities that want to work in mainstream America. People who have disabilities want to be like everybody else. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be seen. They want you to look at them with loving eyes. People who have disabilities, they fall in love. They want careers. And they want regular careers. And that's what I would help them do. I had a client and he was very concerned that he wasn't going to measure up with the so-called normal people. He didn't want to be put down. He didn't want to be embarrassed. He applied for a job at a grocery store as a clerk's helper. And he needed to know what merchandise was down every aisle. And he was overwhelmed at the idea. Overwhelmed. And he says, Michelle, I don't think I can do this. And I said, yes, you can. Because you are somebody now. And you may not have the greatest IQ, but IQ will get your foot in the door, but EQ will make you soar. So as long as you can get along with people, and as long as you have a desire to learn, and as long as you can be optimistic, then you can have this job, and you can keep this job. And that's exactly what he did. He was even featured in a local newspaper. Being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else, to realize that people that are different from you, that are from different cultures, different races, people who may have disabilities, even homeless people, are people too. And they just want you to know that they're there, and they want you to acknowledge them. Social skills. John Maxwell said this: close and personal friends with a few. Consider yourself blessed if you have one or two good friends. Cordial with all, and conflict with none. Well, conflict is the tricky part. Because recently I was in my car and I heard on 92.7 that the most viral emotion on Facebook was anger. Some people feel like it's their duty to air their laundry on social media. Not just their laundry, but your laundry too. So, being able to keep the peace has a lot to do with rapport and being able to communicate effectively. We all know how to talk, especially in a club like this. We're trained to do it. However, sometimes it's a better idea just to listen. When you learn to listen, you really get down to knowing how somebody else feels. So, learn, or might I suggest, that we learn to listen to people, and we will know better how to give feedback. Social skills. Social skills is to be able to work the room, not being afraid to come out of your comfort zone, not being able to be the first person to strike up conversation, just let it out. Not being afraid of what that person is going to think of you if you say something ridiculous or if you do something ridiculous. We're all human here. Being social, saying hello to someone in the grocery line. I have a couple of girlfriends that say, there are no good men out there. I can't meet anyone. Well, where are you going? Well, I went to this party, I went to that bar, I went to that club. Well, what about the hardware store? What about the tons of men that are standing in line at the hardware store? Strike up a conversation with them. Men grocery shop, don't they? They eat. Strike up a conversation with someone at the grocery store. Strike up a conversation with somebody at the library. Don't stick to what other people are doing. Speaking of what other people are doing, so much of us are caught up in social media and making it happen on the internet. But does anybody know who Danielle Steele is? Well, Danielle Steele has sold more than 800 million copies of her CDs. That's a lot. And guess what? Guess what?
What?
She uses a manual typewriter. Some people might say, oh my goodness, how could you use a manual typewriter in this day and age? You're supposed to use a computer. You can save it if you make a mistake. You can use spell check, and then you don't waste any paper. But using a manual typewriter works for Danielle Steele because she's very successful at what she does. And we may not understand why it works for her. Maybe it's the sound of the keys. Maybe it's her hand touching those, or her fingers touching those keys, and the click, 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 click sound. Maybe it motivates her, maybe it inspires her. But just because one thing works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. So, be smart. It's important. If you don't know yourself, ask someone to give an audit on you. Be in control of those negative impulses that drive you to do negative things. Muriel Hemingway found herself to sanity. Motivate. There are two kinds. Balance it. Empathy. Be able to put your shoes in, be able to put your feet, not your shoes, in the shoes of someone else. And social skills. Don't be afraid to go outside of the box, meet new people, work the room, let them know who you are, and don't be afraid if you say something ridiculous. On that note, do yourself a favor, wake up to your mind. Life is what you make it, you see, but still you're blind. Get yourself together, give more than you take, or you'll find out the hard way, soon you're gonna break. Smiling faces are going places. If they count you out, then swing again, just follow through. And you'll be amazed how the change in your ways gets like going for you. Yeah! IQ will get your foot in the door, but EQ will make you soar.
Thank you. I've always wanted to know the finer points of EQ, so thank you. Speakers, do we have any comments?